What sets NewJeans apart from your average K-pop groups? With my years of experience in music production, I'll be uncovering some of the genius techniques that NewJeans producers utilize in their biggest hit tracks. But that's not all. I'll also show you how you can start applying these methods to take your beat making to the next level. If we're trying to analyze the production behind NewJeans, it only makes sense to begin by looking at the genre. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, it's just K-pop, right? And while NewJeans can be classified as K-pop, there's something that you're probably overlooking. The truth is, Korean pop actually encompasses a ridiculous variety of musical styles, elements, and influences. That's why, in order to really understand what makes NewJeans music so good, we have to look way deeper than just K-pop. That song, which has over 500 million streams on Spotify, is an amalgamation of genres. We have a UK garage style melody, which contains a simple 2-chord progression along with a bell counter melody. Then there's a fast breakbeat with straws from the drum and bass genre. There's Jersey Club elements, and then on top of all that, we hear K-pop style vocals from the members. What's the reason for all of this? I want you to pay close attention to how the first part of the hook transitions into the second part. See how the energy picks up? Now ignore the vocal chops and the bell counter melody, because there's something else in there. It's the kick. The kick pattern goes from blending in with the D&B drums to kind of just popping up out of nowhere in a Jersey Club pattern, which completely changes the rhythm and bounce. The producer, Frankie, made that switch even more effective by layering the vocal chops over the new kick pattern in order to emphasize it. So it's not that complicated if you think about it, but as producers, we often overlook doing simple things like that to spice up our beats. But let's take things one step further. You probably know that a lot of K-pop songs have a distinctly chaotic and somewhat aggressive tone, but NewJeans producers make a very intentional effort to find softer, more rounded sounds for the drums and instrumentation in order to fit NewJeans style. It's especially noticeable in Ditto, which is Jersey Club inspired. If you know anything about Jersey Club, it's the type of genre that makes you want to get up and dance. But the producer, 250, picked a softer kick for Ditto as well as chiller percussion, so it's not all up in your face. Same thing for Super Shy, as I was talking about earlier. Your typical D&B drum loop is going to be really hard hitting and gritty. But then here are the D&B drums in Super Shy. The difference is clear. In order to match NewJeans' aesthetic, the drums are carefully picked to be rounded and more smooth. Now wait a second, this is important to understand. We just established that NewJeans has a softer sound. But what is that sound, and what about it makes their music feel so refreshing and different? That was an R&B snare. R&B is a genre which was popularized in the late 1900s and centers around love as a theme. So then when you hear an R&B style snare in Bubblegum by NewJeans, it takes you back to the late 90s and it makes you think about love. Imagine if the producer replaced that snare with an EDM snare. Here's another example from their discography. That electric piano combined with the sign lead is screaming R&B. But at the same time, it still feels like K-pop. Do you see what NewJeans is doing here? The producers are picking modern sounds with a vintage quality. Combining that with the melodic elements and the vocal lines perfectly encapsulates that throwback nostalgic atmosphere while still being very catchy at the same time. I mean, it's literally in their name. NewJeans, a modern take on old trends. So when you're making a track, ask yourself, what sound am I going for? What emotions do I want to invoke in my listeners? Figure out what the sounds you picked are actually doing and how they're contributing to an overall tone. But alright, let's change gears. There's a whole other pile of NewJeans music production sauce that I haven't talked about yet, and a great example of it can be seen in their debut song, Attention. Did you hear how the drums came in? That's called the offbeat. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, let me make things simpler. Here we have a basic drum pattern. Now watch what happens when I take out these hi-hats. See how the groove changes? Now what if I switch out the drum sounds? The offbeat gets even more emphasized. 250, who also produced Attention, plays into the offbeat even more so by tricking us into thinking we're in the downbeat, but then you get slapped in the face with the sudden change. It catches you off guard and it gets your attention. I mean, it's even in the name, Attention. But what's crazy is the groove in the song comes from more than just the offbeat, because there's this golden technique in music production that you probably don't know about yet, and it could change the way that you make beats. The patterns look identical, right? But they sound completely different. The first one has a typical bounce, but then the second one has a little extra groove to it. So what's going on here? On FL Studio, there's this little knob in the drum rack that you've probably seen hundreds of times, but never actually tried using. And when you turn it up, anything that is played as MIDI will become swung. Swing in music is achieved by dividing a beat into two unequal parts, with the first being longer than the second. And by emphasizing the offbeat notes, that's how you get that swinging feel. Also, if you use Ableton or Logic or Cubase or whatever, I put links in the description so you can figure out how to use swing in your own DAW. But let's look at how swing applies in attention. If you listen closely to the bass and the hi-hats, you'll hear how they're swung in order to add that extra spice. Now, I'm warning you, once you hear it, you won't ever unhear it. And if I take away the swing, it just doesn't sound right anymore. Now you know how to make your beats sound that much groovier just by playing around with the knob. Everyone, I have a confession. There's one other secret to Eugene's music production that I haven't told you all yet, and it's been sitting in plain sight this entire time. The beats are just simple. I'm not saying complexity is a bad thing. There's always a time and place for those huge K-pop tracks with different sections and sound effects. The point I'm trying to make here is don't force it if it doesn't need it. The majority of Eugene songs don't have more than a dozen instruments and sounds. I mean, they're a retro and chill spin on K-pop, so of course their beats don't need 50 plus tracks. So the next time you're working on a beat, try muting a couple tracks and you might find that you don't even need them. But there we have the genius techniques behind Eugene's music production. And by the way, Isla is a brand new group, similar to Eugene's, but they're paving their own path, and they're taking over the K-pop scene. As a music producer, the last thing you want to do is fall behind on trends, so watch this video to learn how to make beats in their style. And I'll see y'all soon.